The Toyota Yaris is, well, it's a car, isn't it? One of the most popular in the world for some reason, and now over 20 years old. But it's a bit, well, it's a bit like a fridge, isn't it? You can attach a load of screens and bells and whistles to it, but at the end of the day, it's still just a white good.
So I'm here today to drive the new one. Apparently it's quite special. When's it arriving? That's not a Yaris. Oh.
Yes, this is a Yaris, or at least it's called a Yaris. You see, Toyota want to build a better WRC car, but they face a problem. These days, you have to build 25,000 road versions of a car before you can homologate it for rallying. So, most just race with a standard 5-door hatch. But that's not the perfect way to rally, and in motorsport, Toyota doesn't accept compromise.
Now this is what they came up with, the GR Yaris. Now those first two letters, GR, they're quite important because they stand for Gazoo Racing. You may have heard of Gazoo Racing if you've been watching, say, the Le Mans 24 Hours or the aforementioned World Rally Championship. Because Gazoo Racing is Toyota's motorsport team. Now this isn't just some souped up front wheel drive hot hatch. Oh no. This is actually a from the ground up, specifically designed World Rally car for a project that's now unfortunately no longer going ahead. It has a really tech-heavy four-wheel drive system underneath that was specifically designed for the World Rally Championship, as this little plaque down here next to me will tell you. It's also got, count them, 260 horsepower and 360 newton meters of torque, from what I assume must be some great big V6 or something. No, in fact, it's a 3-cylinder, a 1.6 litre 3-pot producing 260 horsepower. That makes this the most powerful 3-cylinder engine in the world from a single turbocharger, which should give you some idea of what a technological marvel this car actually is. It's still got the standard Yaris's wheelbase, just 2.5 metres, and it's still got the headlights, it's still got the door mirrors, it's still got that little fin on the back. But that's it. To all intents and purposes, this is a ground-up designed rally car. Now there's been compromises because it's going on the road and it's going to be a rally car. So there's things like the roofline at the back is lowered so that it gets better airflow to the rear wing, the massive rear wing that's going to be attached to it. Apparently, Tommy Mackinnon, the boss of the WRC team, wanted the rear seats gone so that the roofline could be even lower, but Toyota said no. Now, there are some compromises in the other direction. You see, in the WRC, you're not allowed to attach aero parts to a rear door. For obvious reasons. It's in the regs. So those have gone. They've completely gone. The roof, that's carbon fibre. There's aluminium bits all over the place to reduce the weight. And the chassis, well, that's a bit of a cut and shut. You see, this part, that's a Toyota Yaris, but this part isn't. It's actually from some of Toyota's larger cars, the Corolla and the CHR. And then they've added 250 extra welds and over 15 meters of structural adhesive to make it stiffer. Somewhere.
From that big grille at the front to those flared wheel arches and the two real exhaust tips at the back, pretty much everything is new. The only extra thing that's still there from the original car is the back lights. And it all weighs just 1,280 kilograms. So it will hit 62 miles an hour in 5.5 seconds. But just look at it. You don't even have to drive this thing to know it means business.
Put your foot down and... Oh yes! Wow! Good Lord!
Once you've gotten over the shock of that kind of poke, we'd better go into some more detail. The GR Yaris is no ordinary hot hatch. It has a four-wheel drive system underneath that Toyota calls GR4. When you're driving in normal mode, it sends 60% of the power to the back rather than the front. Sport mode will push that to 70%. And interestingly, it has a track mode, and that makes the split 50-50. And this specific car is fitted with the £3,500 circuit pack, which adds big 18-inch BBS forged alloys, sharper suspension, Michelin Pilot 4S tyres, and a mechanical torsion diff both front and back. Nice.
So does it work? Oh yes. This is a hot hatch that drives like no other hot hatch that I've sampled before. It feels like the kind of car that redefines its genre in only the way that a homologation special, a kind of car that is built in those fires of motorsport competition, can. But when I first heard that it was going to have a four-wheel drive system, I was a bit, four-wheel drive systems are fine for bigger cars, for like an Audi RS6 or something weighty that needs it, but four-wheel drive systems, they can be a bit anemic, and you know, a hot hatch is supposed to be all about fun. Well, boy was I wrong. This four-wheel drive system is incredible. My personal favourite is probably the sport mode, but they're all really, really good. You put it in sport mode and you find you approach a corner and you get a little bit of understeer. But the thing is, the magic of this system means that as you come through the mid-corner, the back end comes into play with all that torque going backwards. And you can really balance it out quite easily. Now, I'm not talking about driving along and slinging the tail out like it's some kind of big muscle car. No, it's just that knowledge that everything can be gathered up and you drive through the throttle. And then you put it in track mode, and that 50-50 split just makes it a completely different car again. In that mode, you find yourself getting it turned into a corner. The oversteer sort of goes away pretty much. You turn it into a corner and then you mash the throttle and you can just power through and use that torque split just to pull you through almost any corner. It's actually quite addictive. While you get the more fun out of the sort of more edginess that you get from the sport mode, that track mode, the way you can just hammer it through a corner, you really just want to do it over and over and over again. Now that engine is a little marvel. Most of the power is at the top end, and it hits peak power, those 260 horsepower, they don't come until well above 6,000 RPM. So you really rev it out to the red line at 7,000. But you get this wonderful swell for about 4,000. And it just encourages you to go for it and to keep going up the rev range. As you get past 4,000, those three cylinders, they really start to just play. And it really pushes you on. And it doesn't make an amazing noise. There are trick systems in here to pipe a little bit of extra sound in, but it's just the fact that it really wants you to just rev it through the gears that really just encourages you to go for it. It's one of those cars, those magnificent cars that just absolutely wants to go. And not only does it want to go, it encourages you to be better.
One of the marvels of the GR Yaris is that there is no option for changing the dampers. The rotary dial for settings just changes where power is being sent. The damping, it stays the same. There is some shudder if you're driving slowly, but the setup here somehow manages to work with every setting. The moment you pull away in the GR Yaris, you know it means business. There's a weight to the steering, a firmness to that gear change, and a purpose to those big sports seats that makes you feel like, well, something good is happening.
There's only one gearbox option in the GR Yaris, and it's a 6-speed manual, which shows you this car means business. Although, if we are totally honest, if someone at Toyota said they would be willing to fit a big old rally-style sequential gearbox to it, I don't think any of us would complain. sit quite high up in this car, and that's also from the fact that this was designed to be a rally car. Rally drivers sit higher up so they get better view. And that means that the gear stick has had to be lengthened to bring it closer to you. But it's still a brilliant little box. It feels nice in your hand, and there's a really nice short throw to it. But it's not like just flick it away. There's some real mechanics to this. You have to do it yourself. There is some weight. It's the same with the steering. It's got a big bit of heft to it. But the thing about the steering here is that it feels decent, and it's got a nice weight, but it's not full of communication. The thing about this car is, because the marvel is that system underneath, you don't drive it as much with your hands, if you know what I mean. You drive it with almost all of your body. You drive, because everything runs through what you do with your throttle, it's all about what you can feel underneath through that incredibly rigid and incredible chassis that they've developed. And that's what you find yourself just positioning the car into a corner and then using everything else to get it through the rest. It's not all about twirling the wheel constantly. It's about pushing it to find the grip. It's just excellent. And the rest of the interior in here is, well, it's a bit rubbish. There are seats in the back, but good luck. These seats are really nice. The front seats are excellent. The gear stick's excellent. The steering wheel is a nice thin rim. It feels good in the hand. And there is even an actual manual handbrake in this car. It's fantastic. The rest of it is, it's a Yaris. This particular one doesn't even have a sat-nav. But if you're buying this car for the interior, you've bought the wrong car. This car feels like a bit of a throwback in a good way. It's a homologation special forged in the real fires of competition. It's not something that claims some competitive background. It was built specifically for that purpose. I hesitate to call it a game changer, but it drives so differently and so well that you just can't ignore it.
The GR Yaris is almost beyond superlatives. It's unashamedly aggressive, completely uncompromising in how it wants to go fast. And this is a proper supercar in short trousers. It's a car that wishes it was a supercar and has the stones to prove that it actually is one. This is not a hot hatch. It is the cheapest supercar in the world. At just under £30,000, the GR Yaris feels like a steal. And you can have one for just £290 a month. There's 750 coming to the UK this year and 1,000 in 2021, so it is a no-brainer. Now, Toyota. What else can you GR, please?